The phoenix rises from the ashes, 20 relentless rings hammered against the morning quiet, each one a phantom echo of a past that refused to stay buried. My phone, a silent sentinel on the counter, vibrated with a tenacity that belied the world-shattering events of merely 3 days prior. It was him, always him. Mason Taylor, the very same man who had, with breathtaking cruelty, dismissed me as ugly in front of his smirking friends, leaving me not just with a heart shredded into 1,000 pieces, but also a staggering $200 dinner bill at the most upscale Italian restaurant in the city. The audacity, the sheer unmitigated gall of it, still burned a searing path through my memory. Yet here he was, Mason Taylor, his name a luminous betrayal on my screen, demanding my attention with the desperation of a drowning man. My coffee, once a comforting warmth, grew frigid in my trembling hands, mirroring the sudden chill that had descended upon my soul. The early morning sun, usually a welcome beacon of hope through my apartment window, now seemed to illuminate only the stark, chilling terror woven into his 3 a.m. voicemail. "Hazel, please, you have to call me back. Something's happening. Something's very wrong. The photos, how did you... Please, I'm begging you." A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched my lips, a secret, dangerous twist of satisfaction. I let it ring out, allowing the digital abyss of voicemail to swallow his desperate pleas once more. After all, a girl like me, the supposedly ugly and adequate girl, deserved to savor every drop of this unexpected entertainment. But the burning question, the tantalizing riddle that gnawed at me, was how? How did the broken-hearted victim transform so completely, so utterly, into the formidable architect of his downfall? How did a mere 72 hours turn a woman weeping over a cruel breakup into someone capable of bringing Mason Taylor, the man who believed himself truly untouchable, to his knees, begging for mercy? The answer, both exhilarating and terrifying, lay hidden in the depths of that fateful night at Romano's restaurant, and even more significantly, in the shattering discoveries I unearthed about the man I had foolishly believed I loved. Some secrets are not merely buried. They are interred with such profound intent that when they finally claw their way to the surface, they don't just inflict pain. No, they unleash a cataclysm, destroying every single thing in their destructive path. And Mason Taylor, with his casual cruelty and boundless arrogance, was about to learn a very hard truth. The quiet, supposedly ugly girl he had so carelessly discarded had been harboring secrets of her own, secrets far more potent and perilous than he could ever have imagined. You're about to embark on a journey of deception, betrayal, and a justice so perfectly wrought it will leave you breathless, questioning everything you thought you knew about power and revenge. The Last Supper of a Naive Heart. It was just 3 days earlier, a lifetime ago, when I sat across from Mason at Romano's, the very same opulent Italian restaurant where our story, such as it was, had tentatively begun 2 years prior. The bitter irony of his choice was a cruel twist of fate, though at the time, blissfully ignorant, I didn't yet grasp its full, devastating significance. The air hummed with a false sense of intimacy, a precarious illusion that would soon shatter into irreparable fragments. "You look beautiful tonight," he had murmured, his words a hollow compliment, for his eyes, already restless, were sweeping across the elegantly appointed room, tirelessly searching, always searching, for someone, anyone, more captivating, more interesting than the woman who had been his girlfriend for a full 24 months. I had meticulously prepared for this evening, a futile effort to rekindle a spark that had long since died, or perhaps had never truly existed. I wore the emerald green dress he had gifted me for Christmas, a garment chosen with such care, now heavy with the weight of unspoken expectations. My auburn hair, painstakingly styled, fell in soft, luminous waves around my shoulders, catching the subtle ambient light of the restaurant. I had spent a painstaking hour perfecting my makeup, meticulously concealing the tiny insecurities that gnawed at my self-esteem, striving for an image of effortless beauty. I truly believed I looked good. More vitally, I believed he would think I looked good. How utterly, tragically naive I was in that moment, clinging to a fragile hope that was already crumbling beneath my feet. "Thank you," I had whispered, my voice barely audible above the murmur of polite conversation and clinking silverware, reaching across the expanse of the white linen tablecloth to touch his hand. His skin felt cold, distant, a chilling premonition of the emotional chasm that stretched between us. "Mason, is everything okay? You seem different lately." He recoiled almost imperceptibly, withdrawing his hand as if my touch had tainted him, then signaled the waiter for yet another whiskey, his third of the evening. "Everything's fine, Hazel. Can a guy take his girlfriend out for dinner without getting the third degree?" The words stung, a venomous dart aimed directly at my heart, but I forced the pain down, smothering it beneath layers of manufactured understanding. Mason, I reasoned, had been under immense stress with work lately. His marketing firm, Pinnacle, a demanding beast that consumed his every waking moment. I understood pressure, after all. I, Hazel Wilson, worked grueling 60-hour weeks as a trauma nurse at the hospital, constantly navigating the precipice of life and death. Stress was a familiar, unwelcome companion. Before I could offer a placating response, a new presence infiltrated our fragile bubble. "Hey, Mason." I turned to see three men approaching our table, their arrival an unwelcome disruption. I recognized them instantly, each face a distinct flavor of superficiality. Jake Charles, Mason's former college roommate, with his impeccably styled blonde hair and suits that screamed expensive. Trevor Banks, a colleague from Pinnacle Marketing, whose jokes were always laced with an uncomfortable, often crude undertone. And Ryan Mitchell, the one who, despite countless introductions, seemed utterly incapable of recalling my name. Mason's entire demeanor underwent an instantaneous, electrifying transformation. His face, previously a mask of bored indifference, now illuminated as if someone had plunged him into an electrical socket, radiating an artificial, almost frantic charm. "Guys, what are you doing here?" "We were just finishing up dinner with some clients," Jake interjected, his eyes sweeping over me with a dismissive glance that barely registered my presence. "Mind if we join you for a drink?" My entire being screamed, "Yes, I mind!" This was supposed to be our night, a desperately needed reconnection after weeks of neglect. I had yearned for intimacy, for real conversation, for any scrap of the man I thought I knew. But Mason, ever the eager host, was already pulling out chairs, extending an invitation before I could utter a single objection. "Of course! Hazel, you remember the guys?" "Hi," I managed, a soft, wavering sound, offering a small, almost imperceptible wave. Trevor nodded absently, his gaze already drifting. Ryan looked right through me as if I were a ghost. Jake, at least, offered a fleeting, patronizing smirk. The ensuing hours stretched into an eternity of exquisite torture. Their conversation was a whirlwind of insider jargon. Work gossip, names of people I didn't know, sports statistics I didn't follow. Every tentative attempt I made to contribute, to find a sliver of common ground, was met with an immediate interruption, a swift change of subject, or a blank, uncomprehending stare. Mason, meanwhile, reveled in their company, his booming laughter punctuating their jokes. Jokes that were not funny, jokes that were often cruel, jokes that caused me to shrink further and further into the plush velvet of my chair, a silent, shrinking violet in a room full of boisterous, self-important men. "So, Mason," Trevor began, leaning back, his gaze raking over me with an unnerving, unreadable intensity. "When are you going to upgrade?" The table fell silent, the abrupt cessation of noise more jarring than any shout. Mason's whiskey glass, halfway to his lips, froze in midair. "What do you mean?" His voice, though carefully neutral, betrayed a subtle flicker of apprehension. "Come on, man," Jake interjected, his voice dropping to what he presumably imagined was a conspiratorial whisper, but was, in fact, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "You know what we mean. You're successful. You're good-looking. You've got that new promotion coming up. Don't you think it's time for an adjustment?" My blood, a moment before a warm, comforting river, now turned to ice water, congealing in my veins. They were discussing me right in front of me, as if I were an inanimate object, a commodity to be traded or replaced. "Guys," Mason attempted, but his voice lacked conviction, devoid of anger, utterly bereft of any defense for the woman he purportedly loved. "I mean, look around this place," Ryan added, gesturing grandly at the elegant restaurant, a tableau vivant of beautiful couples, sophisticated attire, and effortless charm. "Look at the caliber of women here. Don't you want someone who fits?" I stared at Mason, my gaze silently pleading, waiting, praying for him to intervene, to silence his cruel friends, to defend my honor. I waited for him to remember the tender words he'd once whispered, calling me the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen, praising my smile, my laugh, the childlike excitement I found in old movies, the compassion I showed for rescued stray cats. Instead, Mason drained his whiskey, setting the empty glass down with a sharp, definitive clink. "You know what?" he said, his voice gaining momentum, growing stronger, bolder with each syllable. "You're right." The vibrant restaurant noise faded into a dull, distant hum. My heart ceased its frantic beating, suspended in a moment of agonizing disbelief. The world, once a stable, predictable entity, tilted violently sideways. "Mason," my voice was a fragile whisper, barely escaping my throat. He turned to look at me then, truly look at me, and I saw not the man I loved, but a stranger. The warmth, the kindness, the affection I had fallen for was utterly gone, replaced by something cold, calculating, and chillingly indifferent. His dark brown eyes, the ones I had once lost myself in, now regarded me with a look of distaste, as if I were something repulsive he had unexpectedly discovered clinging to the sole of his expensive shoe. "Hazel, this isn't working anymore." What do you mean?" The three men leaned back in their chairs, a tableau of expectant spectators, as if settling in to watch a particularly entertaining drama unfold. Jake, in a final act of casual cruelty, actually smiled. "I mean us. This!" Mason gestured vaguely between us, a dismissive sweep of his hand. "I'm moving up in the world, and I need someone who can move up with me. Someone who fits the image I'm trying to create." The words suffocated me, a heavy shroud pulled tight over my head. I felt like I was drowning in an ocean of his shallow ambition. "Mason, I don't understand. What image? What are you talking about?" "Look, Hazel." He sighed, a sound laden with profound weariness, as if this conversation, this brutal unraveling of our shared life, was nothing more than a tedious chore on his never-ending to-do list. "You're a nice girl. You're adequate, but let's be honest here." The word adequate landed like a physical blow, a sudden, sharp impact that stole my breath. "Let's be honest about what?" Mason's gaze swept around the table, seeking and finding the encouraging nods of his friends, drawing strength and validation from their silent approval. He sat up straighter, his posture radiating newfound confidence, and looked me directly in the eyes. The words he uttered next were a death knell to my spirit, hanging heavy in the air like toxic smoke. "You're just not pretty enough for where I'm going in life." A collective gasp, unheard but deeply felt, echoed through my soul. I imagined every head at nearby tables turning, their pity and curiosity burning into my skin, 1,000 invisible needles pricking my exposed vulnerability. "Mason, please don't do this," I whispered, my voice cracked and broken. "Not here, not like this. When would be a good time, Hazel? When would be the right time to tell you that you're just not enough?" Trevor snorted, a cruel, derisive sound. "Damn, dude. Harsh but necessary," Jake added, nodding sagely. "Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind." "You want to know the truth?" Mason continued, his voice escalating, growing louder, more public. Other diners were undoubtedly staring now, their conversations hushed, their gazes fixed on our dramatic tableau. "The truth is that I've been embarrassed to be seen with you for months. My colleagues asked me about my girlfriend, and I make excuses not to bring you to company events because you don't fit. You don't belong in my world." Each word was a sharpened knife, twisted brutally between my ribs. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white, my nails digging into the wood, a desperate attempt to anchor myself to a reality that was rapidly disintegrating. "Mason, stop, please. You work in a hospital dealing with blood and vomit all day. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. You shop at discount stores and think Olive Garden is fine dining. And you?" He paused, his gaze sweeping over me, up and down, with an undisguised look of profound disgust. "You're just not attractive enough to make any of that worth overlooking." Ryan let out a low whistle, a crude sound of approval. "Jesus, Mason, what? She needs to hear this. She needs to understand reality." Tears threatened to overflow, hot and stinging behind my eyelids, but I refused to let them fall. I would not give them that satisfaction, that ultimate triumph over my broken spirit. "So that's it?" I managed to ask, my voice a ragged gasp. 2 years and that's it?" 2 years too long," Mason declared, pushing back his chair and standing up, pulling his wallet from his pocket. He threw a single $20 bill onto the table, a pathetic offering. "That should cover my drinks. You can handle the rest, right? Consider it a farewell gift." The dinner bill, a monumental $200, mocked me from the elegant leather folder. I was a trauma nurse, not a brain surgeon. $200 was my grocery budget for 2 entire weeks. "Mason, I can't afford." "You'll figure it out," he said, already shrugging into his jacket, his voice laced with dismissive certainty. "You always do." His 3 friends rose with him, a pack of hyenas following their alpha, their laughter echoing through the restaurant as they began to walk toward the door. "See you around, Hazel," Jake said, a mask of mock sympathy plastered across his face. "Maybe." They strode away, their laughter and conversation filling the space they left behind, as if they hadn't just systematically annihilated a human being, as if they hadn't just snatched 2 precious years of my life and casually tossed them into the garbage. But Mason wasn't finished. As they reached the restaurant entrance, he paused, turning back, and raised his voice, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear his final, cruel pronouncement. "A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you for as long as I did." The laughter that followed them out the door reverberated in my ears, a series of gunshot-like reports, each one piercing my heart anew. I sat there, utterly alone in the suddenly too quiet restaurant, surrounded by strangers, their pitying stares burning into my skin, a living monument to my own public humiliation. The waiter, sensing the gravity of the moment, approached cautiously, as if I might lash out. "Miss, will you be needing anything else?" "Just the check, please," I whispered. When he presented it, I stared at the total with a numb disbelief that bordered on the surreal. $237.43. It was more than I had in my checking account until payday. I smiled, a strange, unsettling smile that held no joy, no relief, no sense of being okay. I smiled because something profound and irrevocable had broken inside me. And in its breaking, it had revealed something I had kept buried, hidden, for a very, very long time. Something Mason Taylor, in his boundless arrogance, had absolutely no idea existed. Something that was about to make his life very, very complicated. I paid the bill with my credit card, a silent promise of future reckoning, and walked out of Romano's, my head held high, my spirit irrevocably changed. The veil is lifted, reclaiming the phoenix. The valet, a young man with an empathetic gaze, brought my 10-year-old Honda, a car Mason had often made disparaging remarks about. It was, in truth, a 9-year-old Civic, bought with hard-earned cash because I believed fundamentally in living within my means. Mason, throughout our relationship, had peppered his conversations with snide comments about my car, my clothes, my lifestyle choices. I had, in my hopeful naivety, always dismissed them as playful teasing, attempts to motivate me to better myself. Now, with the clarity of shattered illusions, I understood. He had been meticulously cataloging my perceived inadequacies for months, compiling a mental dossier of reasons to discard me. The drive home to my modest apartment in the quiet suburbs was a blurred tapestry of streetlights and unshed tears. I refused to let them fall, not yet. Not when there was work to be done. Once inside, I deadbolted the door, a symbolic act of severing ties with the outside world, and kicked off the heels that had been pinching my feet all night, their discomfort a physical manifestation of the emotional agony I had endured. I walked straight to my bathroom mirror, my reflection staring back at me with a mixture of raw pain and nascent defiance. "Ugly," I said aloud, testing the word on my tongue like a foreign, bitter substance. The woman staring back at me, however, was anything but. Her auburn hair, now freed from its careful styling, caught the bathroom light like spun copper. Her green eyes, once described by infatuated men as mesmerizing, held a depth of emotion that spoke volumes. Her delicate features, framed by that fiery hair, seemed to belong in a Renaissance painting, a testament to a quiet, understated beauty. I knew, rationally, I wasn't a supermodel, but I had never, not once, considered myself ugly. I had always thought I was pretty. More importantly, I had believed Mason thought I was pretty. Adequate. I repeated the word, allowing its poisonous tendrils to spread, probing the wounds it had inflicted. I had graduated summa cum laude from nursing school, a testament to my intelligence and dedication. I had worked in trauma units in 3 different cities, bearing witness to the fragility of life, constantly pushing the boundaries of my endurance. I had saved countless lives, comforted grieving families, and made a tangible, profound difference in the world every single day. I had never, not in a million years, considered myself merely adequate. I thought I was accomplished, capable, essential. Yet Mason had been right about one crucial thing, though he had utterly failed to grasp its true magnitude. I wasn't who I appeared to be. With a newfound resolve, I walked to my bedroom and opened the closet door, pushing aside the mundane reality of my work scrubs and casual clothes. Hidden at the very back, almost forgotten, was a garment bag I hadn't touched in over 3 years. Inside, a whisper of exquisite fabric, was a black cocktail dress, its price tag a staggering sum that could easily exceed Mason's entire monthly salary. Beside it hung jewelry that could have effortlessly paid off his burdensome student loans. At the bottom of the bag, nestled among silk and satin, were shoes that were veritable works of art, handcrafted by master artisans, and a clutch purse, a bespoke creation from Italy. This was not the wardrobe of an adequate nurse. I pulled out my laptop, a simple, unassuming device, and logged into a bank account I hadn't accessed since I'd moved to this city, meticulously crafting my new identity as just Hazel, the nurse. The current balance flashed across the screen, a breathtaking sum, $2,847,392.67. I scrolled through my meticulously managed portfolio, tech stocks, prime real estate investments, municipal bonds, all performing beautifully, just as my astute financial advisor had confidently predicted. Then, with a deliberate, almost ceremonial gesture, I retrieved my other laptop, the one hidden in a false bottom of my dresser drawer. This was no ordinary computer. Its specialized software, a testament to its formidable capabilities, cost more than most people's cars. It was time to remember who I truly was, time to shed the protective skin of adequacy and unleash the force I had long suppressed. My name is Hazel Wilson. Yes, and I am indeed a trauma nurse. But I am also Hazel Blackstone, the daughter of the late, legendary tech mogul, Richard Blackstone, founder and CEO of the monolithic Blackstone Industries. My personal net worth dwarfs Mason's, his friends' combined lifetimes of earnings, and then some. 3 years ago, in the wake of my father's unexpected death, I inherited not just his unfathomable wealth, but his empire, a sprawling company I had helped him build from the ground up. Starting with rudimentary coding lessons at the tender age of 12 and progressing to sophisticated corporate strategy by the time I was 25. But inheriting billions at 26 had imparted a valuable, albeit painful, lesson. When people discover you're rich, they rarely love you. They love your money, your vast network of connections, your immense power. They love what you can do for them, what you represent. So I had made a choice. I placed professional managers in charge of Blackstone Industries, a trust run by the most capable minds money could buy. I moved to a new city, an anonymous landscape where I could reinvent myself, starting over as a trauma nurse, a profession I had always secretly yearned to explore, a noble calling far removed from the cold calculations of the corporate world. I had lived modestly, driven ordinary cars, shopped at unassuming stores. My deepest desire had been to find someone who would love me, for the essence of my being, not for the boundless resources I could provide. I had, with a heartbreaking blend of hope and vulnerability, believed I had found that person in Mason Taylor. How catastrophically, utterly wrong I had been. I opened my secure messaging system, a sophisticated interface that bypassed conventional communication channels, and typed a concise, urgent message to my head of security, a formidable former CIA operative named Victoria Cross, who had served my father with unwavering loyalty for 15 years. Vic, need a deep background check on Mason Taylor, DOB March 15, 1992. Currently employed at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. Also need full profiles on Jake Charles, Trevor Banks, and Ryan Mitchell. All associates of the target. Need everything. Finances, relationships, secrets, weaknesses. Timeline, 48 hours. The response predictably came back in less than 5 minutes, a testament to Victoria's legendary efficiency. Understood. Anything I should know about the level of detail required? I smiled at my reflection in the laptop screen, a cold, predatory glint in my eyes that had been absent for years. Find everything, Vic. Leave no stone unturned. They hurt someone I care about. Will do. Sorry to hear that. Do you need additional resources? Not yet, but keep the team on standby. I closed the laptop, the soft click, a punctuation mark on a new chapter, and walked back to my closet. Tomorrow, I would return to work, plaster a brave smile on my face for my patients, and pretend to be the heartbroken Hazel Wilson, the dumped nurse who couldn't even afford a fancy dinner. But tonight, a different kind of work awaited me. Mason Taylor, in his profound ignorance, had made the gravest mistake of his life, believing me to be weak, ordinary, and utterly beneath him. He had chosen to humiliate me in public because he thought I possessed no power, no resources, no ability to fight back. He was about to learn that sometimes the quietest people are quiet for a very, very good reason. The next morning, the fluorescent lights of the hospital felt strangely muted, the bustling corridors a distant hum as I moved through my rounds like a ghost, a phantom presence navigating the familiar landscape of illness and recovery. I checked on Mrs. Rodriguez, a resilient woman slowly mending from a heart attack, offering gentle words of encouragement. I worked alongside Dr. Thompson, our hands moving in practiced synchronicity, stabilizing a car crash victim whose life hung precariously in the balance. I offered a comforting presence to a scared teenager, pale and trembling, who had overdosed at a party, a silent testament to the fragile line between innocence and self-destruction. These were the normal, everyday duties of Hazel Wilson, the trauma nurse, the kind of adequate work, I mused with a bitter internal twist, that adequate people do. My phone buzzed, pulling me momentarily from my reverie. A text from Emma Clark, my best friend and fellow nurse, flashed across the screen. "Girl, you look like hell. Coffee break?" No. Emma was the only person in this sprawling city who knew anything substantial about my past, and even she remained blissfully unaware of the true extent of my origins. I had confided in her during nursing school, revealing only that I came from money, but desperately wanted to make my own way. Emma, bless her kind, practical heart, had always interpreted money as upper middle class, a comfortable existence. Certainly not the kind of wealth that would allow me to casually purchase the very hospital we worked in without so much as a glance at my bank balance. Later, as we sat in the sterile confines of the hospital cafeteria, nursing cups of truly terrible coffee, Emma fixed me with her perceptive gaze. "Okay, spill. You're doing that thing where you smile but your eyes look dead. What happened?" "Mason broke up with me." "That bastard! How?" I recounted the brutal story, watching her expressive face cycle through a kaleidoscope of emotions. Initial disbelief, swiftly followed by simmering anger, and finally a volcanic surge of unadulterated rage. "He called you what? In public?" Emma's voice, usually a gentle murmur, carried across the cafeteria, causing several heads to turn in our direction. "That piece of garbage! Hazel, honey, you know he's wrong, right? You know you're beautiful." "Do I?" I asked quietly, the question a raw whisper of doubt. "Yes, you absolutely do. You're stunning, you're brilliant, you're kind, and you save lives for a living. Mason Taylor is a walking pile of mediocrity in an expensive suit. You're worth 100 of him." If only she knew how literally, how profoundly true her words were. "It's fine," I insisted, forcing a placating smile. "I'm fine." "No, you're not. You're planning something. You get this look when you're planning something. It's the same look you had when you figured out how to prove that Dr. Kingston was stealing medication." Emma, with her uncanny intuition, knew me too well, perhaps even better than I knew myself sometimes. "I'm not planning anything. What would I plan? I'm just a nurse, remember? Just adequate." "Don't you dare," Emma warned, pointing her fork at me like a tiny but potent weapon. "Don't you dare let that jerk make you believe you're anything less than amazing." My phone buzzed again. A message from Victoria Cross. "Initial sweep complete. Meet tonight. Your place, 9 p.m. I typed back quickly. "Confirmed." "Who's that?" Emma asked, ever curious. "Wrong number," I lied smoothly, the deception sliding off my tongue with practiced ease. "Listen, I should get back to work. Mrs. Rodriguez needs her medication adjusted." "Hazel?" Emma grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly firm. "Promise me you won't do anything stupid. I know you're hurt, but don't let him turn you into someone you're not." I squeezed her hand in return, offering my most reassuring, albeit entirely disingenuous smile. "Don't worry about me, Em. I'm going to be just fine." But even as the words left my lips, a shiver of anticipation ran down my spine. The old Hazel Wilson, the woman Emma knew, might have done something stupid. The new Hazel Blackstone was far more calculating, far more dangerous. At precisely 9 p.m., a crisp, authoritative knock echoed through my apartment. Victoria Cross. She looked exactly as she had 3 years ago, an unyielding portrait of unwavering competence. Platinum blonde hair pulled back in a severe, no-nonsense bun, sharp blue eyes that missed absolutely nothing, and the kind of understated elegance that could only be cultivated through years of operating in high-stakes, perilous environments. "Hazel," she greeted, embracing me briefly, her touch surprisingly warm. "You look good. Civilian life agrees with you." "Thanks, Vic. Come in." She placed her sleek black briefcase on my kitchen table, opening it with a practiced, efficient movement. "I have to say, when you disappeared into suburban nursing life, I never expected to hear from you again. Your father would be proud, by the way. The company's stock price has increased 40% since you took over. The managers you recommended are excellent." "They are," I conceded, "but they're not you." Victoria pulled out a thick file, its contents a harbinger of meticulously gathered secrets. "Now, let's discuss why you want to destroy Mason Taylor." "I didn't say I wanted to destroy him." Victoria fixed me with a look that could have frozen water, her gaze piercing through my feigned innocence. "Hazel, I've known you since you were 16 years old. I know the difference between a routine background check and a nuclear option investigation. This is a nuclear option." I sank into my chair, the pretense finally dropping away. "Tell me what you found." "Mason Taylor is a textbook narcissist with delusions of grandeur and financial problems he hides remarkably well," Victoria declared, opening the file with a flourish as if unveiling a masterful piece of forensic art. "On the surface, he looks good. Marketing manager at Pinnacle. Nice apartment, expensive clothes, drives a leased BMW. But dig deeper." She spread photos and documents across my table, like she was laying out a hand of cards, each one a damning piece of evidence. His credit cards are maxed out. He owes $43,000 in student loans. His rent is 2 months behind, and he's been moving money between accounts to desperately avoid overdraft fees. The expensive lifestyle? It's all smoke and mirrors, a carefully constructed facade. What about his job? Pinnacle Marketing is struggling. They've been laying people off quietly for 6 months. Mason's position is safe for now, but barely. Victoria's voice dropped, a subtle shift that indicated a more serious revelation. "And there's something else. He's been embezzling." My blood ran cold, a sudden, icy shock. "What?" "Small amounts, 100 here, 200 there. He's been skimming from client expense accounts and billing personal charges as business expenses. I estimate he's stolen about $15,000 over the past year." "Does Pinnacle know?" "Not yet, but they will once someone knows where to look." Victoria offered a tight, predatory smile. "The question is, do you want them to find out sooner rather than later?" I stared at Mason's photo, his corporate headshot radiating an almost palpable smugness, an undeniable arrogance that seemed to emanate directly from the lens. What about his friends? Jake Charles is drowning in gambling debts. Trevor Banks is having an affair with his boss's wife. Ryan Mitchell has a sealed juvenile record that would definitely affect his security clearance at his defense contractor job. How sealed? Let's just say it involves violence, and leave it at that. I absorbed this torrent of information, feeling the disparate pieces of a complex, devastating plan click into place in my mind. "Vic, I need you to do something for me. Name it. I want you to quietly tip off Pinnacle about Mason's embezzlement, but don't make it obvious. Make it look like routine accounting caught the discrepancies." Victoria nodded, her expression unreadable. "Done. What else? Can you arrange for Jake Charles's gambling debts to be called in all at once?" "Easily. His primary creditor is someone we've done business with." "And Trevor's affair?" "I can make sure his boss finds out. Anonymously, of course." "And Ryan's record." Victoria's smile was sharp as a blade, glinting with a dangerous intelligence. "Let me worry about that." I walked to my window, looking out at the quiet, unsuspecting suburban street, a peaceful tableau utterly unaware of the storm I was about to unleash. 3 days ago, I had been just another woman, heartbroken and vulnerable, desperately searching for love in a complicated world. Now, I was something else entirely, a precise, methodical architect, planning the systematic destruction of 4 men who, in their hubris, believed themselves utterly untouchable. "Are you sure about this?" Victoria asked quietly, her voice a low counterpoint to my escalating resolve. "Once we start, there's no going back. These men will be ruined." I thought about Mason's voice, his final, humiliating pronouncement, carrying across Romano's restaurant. "A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you." I thought about the laughter that had followed him out the door. I thought about every woman who had ever been made to feel small, inadequate, or less than by men who believed their cruelty was a justified prerogative. They should have thought of that before they decided to humiliate someone they believed was powerless. Victoria began packing up her files, a silent acknowledgement of my unwavering resolve. "Consider it done, but Hazel, this is just the beginning. From what I found, Mason Taylor has made a lot of enemies. A lot of people would be very interested to learn about his financial situation and his creative accounting." After Victoria left, I sat in my quiet apartment, the only sound the hum of my laptop. I pulled up Mason's social media profiles, his LinkedIn, his company bio. In every photo, he projected an image of effortless success, confidence, and unshakable happiness. By the time I was finished with him, all of that, every carefully constructed facade, would be utterly gone. But I wasn't interested in simply ruining his life. That would be too simple, too clean, too lacking in the poetic justice I craved. I wanted him to understand, intimately, viscerally, exactly how it felt to be publicly humiliated, to know the crushing weight of shame when the whole world bore witness to your downfall. I wanted him to beg, and then, only then, I wanted him to know, with absolute certainty, precisely who had brought him down. My phone rang at 3 a.m., Mason's name flashing across the screen. I let it go to voicemail. The plan, precise and merciless, was just beginning. The cascade of consequences. The first domino, carefully positioned and meticulously toppled, fell on a Tuesday morning. I was in the trauma unit, methodically restocking medical supplies, the mundane tasks a calming ritual amidst the controlled chaos of the hospital, when Emma burst through the doors, her eyes wide with uncontainable excitement. "Hazel, did you see the news about that marketing company? Pinnacle something." My hands never faltered in their work, but beneath the surface, my heart rate spiked, a silent drumbeat of anticipation. "What news?" "Embezzlement scandal. Apparently some manager was stealing from client accounts. They fired him and called the police. It's all over the local business news." I calmly pulled out my phone, navigating with practiced ease to the local news website. There, stark and undeniable in black and white, was the damning headline, "Local Marketing Manager Arrested for Embezzlement." Mason's corporate headshot, a portrait of his former arrogant confidence, stared back at me from the screen, now a symbol of his public disgrace. The accompanying article detailed the ignominious fall. The accused, Mason Taylor, 30, allegedly stole approximately $15,000 from client expense accounts over the past year. Pinnacle Marketing Solutions discovered the discrepancies during a routine audit and immediately contacted authorities. Taylor was arrested at his workplace Tuesday morning. I had to bite my lip, a small internal battle to suppress the triumphant smile that threatened to break through. "Wow," I said, keeping my voice carefully neutral, laced with a feigned concern. "That's terrible. Isn't that your ex-boyfriend?" Emma asked, peering at my phone screen, a flicker of recognition in her eyes. Yeah, it is. Holy crap, Hazel. I know he was a jerk, but I never thought he was a criminal." "You never really know someone," I murmured, the words laced with a truth far deeper than Emma could ever fathom. The second domino, a delicate but crucial piece in my intricate design, fell on Wednesday. Victoria sent me a discreet text message, a simple link to a local gossip blog that carried a new, equally damaging headline. "Prominent defense contractor employee loses security clearance after juvenile record surfaces." Ryan Mitchell's carefully curated image was shattered, his professional life collapsing around him. His photo, now forever linked to shame, accompanied an article detailing how his sealed juvenile record for assault had, through some mysterious means, found its way directly to his employer's security office. Without his security clearance, he was rendered utterly incapable of performing his job duties. And without his job, his meticulously constructed lifestyle, the mortgage, the car payments, the expensive habits, would inevitably crumble. The third domino followed swiftly on Thursday, bringing Trevor Banks's carefully concealed transgression into the harsh glare of public scrutiny. His affair, once a whispered secret, exploded onto the society pages when his boss's enraged wife, in a spectacular display of furious indignation, hurled a very public, very expensive vase at him in the opulent setting of an upscale restaurant. The accompanying photograph, a masterpiece of unfortunate timing, depicted Trevor drenched in water and scattered white roses, his face a mask of shock and profound humiliation. His boss, predictably, fired him the very next day, his career irrevocably stained. But Jake Charles's downfall, meticulously crafted and flawlessly executed, was truly my masterpiece, a symphony of ruin. Victoria had orchestrated a financial ambush, arranging for all his gambling debts to be called in simultaneously on Friday morning. When Jake, utterly unprepared, found himself unable to pay, his creditors made their displeasure and the dire consequences of his insolvency chillingly clear. Desperate, cornered, and facing unthinkable repercussions, he did what desperate men often do. He made terrible, irreversible decisions. He attempted to steal money from his own company, a clumsy, amateurish attempt that stood in stark contrast to Mason's calculated embezzling. He was caught within hours, his frantic, ill-conceived plan unraveling before his eyes. And by Friday evening, Jake Charles found himself behind bars, a new resident of a jail cell, a pathetic echo of his former friend Mason Taylor. By Saturday morning, Mason's entire circle, his carefully cultivated network of superficial friends and collaborators, had utterly collapsed, their lives in ruins. That's when the frantic, desperate calls began. The first one came at 6 a.m. I was in my kitchen, brewing a fresh pot of coffee, humming a quiet tune to myself, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Mason's world, when my phone rang. Hazel, thank God you answered. Mason's voice was a ragged plea, a shadow of its former arrogance. I injected a carefully measured confusion into my voice. Mason, why are you calling me? I thought you said... Look, I know what I said at the restaurant was wrong. I was drunk. I was showing off for the guys. I didn't mean it. You seemed pretty clear about what you meant. Please, Hazel, I'm in trouble, real trouble. I've been arrested, I've lost my job, and I need help. What kind of help? Legal help? Financial help? I can't afford a good lawyer, and their public defender they gave me looks like he's barely out of law school. I allowed a long, pregnant silence to stretch between us, savoring the moment. Hazel, are you there? I'm here. I'm just confused about why you think I'd help you. You said I was ugly, remember? You said I was adequate at best. You said I should be grateful you dated me. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. You're beautiful. You're amazing. And I was an idiot to let you go. So you want me back? Yes, absolutely. We can work this out. We can. I hung up, the abrupt click a definitive end to his rambling. He called back immediately. I let it go to voicemail. Hazel, please don't hang up on me. I love you. I know I have a shitty way of showing it, but I love you. Please call me back. The serpent in the garden of justice. The second call, 2 hours later, found Mason's desperation growing, an almost palpable entity clinging to his words. Hazel, something really weird is happening. It's not just me. Jake, Trevor, Ryan, we're all going through hell right now. Jake and I are both arrested. Trevor lost his job, Ryan lost his clearance. It's like someone is targeting us. This was interesting, very interesting. That does sound strange, I said carefully, feigning a detached curiosity. Right? I mean, what are the odds? All four of us having disasters in the same week. Pretty low, I'd imagine. Exactly. Look, I know this sounds crazy, but I think someone is messing with us. Someone with serious resources. Like who? I don't know. A competitor, maybe? Or someone we pissed off. He was getting closer to the truth than I had anticipated. Mason might be stupid, but he wasn't completely oblivious. Mason, I think you're being paranoid. Sometimes bad things just happen. All at once? To all of us? Come on, Hazel, you're smart. You see patterns at the hospital all the time. Doesn't this seem orchestrated to you? I think you're looking for someone to blame for your own bad choices. By bad choices, Hazel, I didn't choose to have discover my financial irregularities. I was careful. Very careful. Maybe not careful enough. A long pause stretched between us, heavy with unspoken accusations. You know what? You're right. I made mistakes and now I'm paying for them. But that doesn't change the fact that I need help. and you're the only person I trust." "The only person you trust? Really?" The irony was so thick, so rich, I could have sliced it with a knife. "Yes, you're the only person who ever cared about me. For me, not for what I could give them." "What exactly do you want from me, Mason?" "A loan. Just enough to hire a decent lawyer. I'll pay you back as soon as I get back on my feet." "How much?" $50,000. I almost laughed aloud. $50,000. I made that much in investment interest every few days. "Mason, I'm a trauma nurse. Where would I get $50,000? "You could take out a loan or ask your family." "My family doesn't have that kind of money, and I can't qualify for a loan that big." "Then what about a smaller amount? 20,000, 10,000? Anything would help." I pretended to consider this, drawing out his agony. "I might be able to scrape together 5,000. But Mason, after what you said to me, after how you treated me, why should I help you?" "Because you're a good person, Hazel. Because you save lives every day. Because somewhere deep down, you still care about me." He was right about one thing. I still cared about him. I cared about watching him squirm, about seeing his carefully constructed world crumble. I need time to think about it. "How much time?" "A few days." "Hazel, I don't have a few days. My hearing is Monday. If I don't have a lawyer, then you'll have a public defender. Lots of people get by with public defenders." "Lots of people go to prison with public defenders," he retorted, a frantic edge creeping into his voice. "Maybe you should have thought of that before you started stealing." The silence stretched so long I thought he'd finally hung up. "Hazel, do you hate me?" Such a simple question. Such a complicated answer. "No, Mason, I don't hate you." It was the truth. Hate was too small an emotion for what I felt. Hate was what you felt for someone who had hurt you but was still on your level, still worthy of your emotional energy. What I felt for Mason Taylor was something far more dangerous, far more chilling. I felt nothing. He was a problem to be solved, an equation to be balanced, a stain to be cleaned up. "Thank you," he whispered, a fragile breath of relief. "I'll call you tomorrow." "Sure." After I hung up, I opened my laptop and with a few clicks transferred $5,000 from one of my investment accounts to my regular checking account. Not because I was going to give it to Mason, but because I wanted him to see, with brutal clarity, exactly how much I was truly worth when the time came to reveal the truth. The third call came Sunday night, and Mason sounded utterly different, stripped bare, desperate beyond measure. "Hazel, I've been thinking about what I said about someone targeting us. Yeah, I think I know who it is." My blood turned to ice water, a jolt of recognition. "Who?" "Your family." "What? Think about it. You told me your family had money, right? Not like rich, but comfortable. What if they found out what I said to you? What if they decided to teach me a lesson?" I almost admired his intuition. He was completely wrong about the details, but he had, against all odds, grasped the essential truth. Someone with vast resources was systematically destroying his life. "Mason, my family doesn't have the kind of money or connections to do something like this." "Are you sure? I mean, really sure? Because the timing is too perfect. I break up with you in the most public, humiliating way possible, and then within a week, my entire world falls apart." "That's quite an ego you have there," I said, a dry, sardonic edge to my voice. "You think my family cares enough about me to launch some kind of revenge plot, don't they?" The question hung in the air like a poised blade. "Mason, you're being paranoid. My family barely has enough money to cover their own bills, much less hire private investigators or whatever you think they did." "Then explain it. Explain how 4 successful guys all get destroyed in the same week." "You weren't that successful," I said quietly, the truth a bitter pill. "You just pretended to be." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means maybe the universe is just correcting an imbalance. Maybe you all got away with things for too long and now the bill is coming due." "That's not how the world works, Hazel. Isn't it?" The fourth call came Monday morning at 3 a.m. I was awake anyway, sitting in my living room with a cup of soothing tea, watching the dawn break over the quiet city, contemplating the complex nuances of justice. "Hazel." Mason's voice was raw, utterly broken, a shattered echo of his former self. "I'm sorry. I'm so f***ing sorry. What happened?" "My hearing went badly. They're talking about 18 months in prison." 18 Months, Hazel. And that's if I plead guilty. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Are you really sorry? Because sometimes I wonder if you're happy about this. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my tea, allowing the silence to hang between us. Why would I be happy about this? Because of what I said to you? Because I hurt you? Mason, I'm not the kind of person who takes pleasure in other people's suffering. It was mostly true. I didn't take pleasure in suffering in general. Just his suffering. Just the suffering of men who thought they could crush other people without consequences. I know you're not. That's why I'm calling. That's why I need you to help me. I told you I need time to think about the loan. Not the loan, something else. What? I need you to be a character witness. The request hit me like a physical blow, a stunning act of audacity. What? At my sentencing hearing, I need people to testify that I'm not a bad person, that I made mistakes, but I don't deserve to go to prison. You knew me better than anyone. If you could just tell them about the good times we had, about how I was with you when we were alone. Mason, please. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I was cruel and stupid and wrong about everything, but Hazel, if you could see me now, I'm broken. I'm completely broken. I could hear it in his voice. The arrogance was utterly gone. The confidence was a distant memory. The casual cruelty that had allowed him to humiliate me in public had vanished, replaced by an overwhelming tide of fear and raw desperation. It was, to my ears, the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. I'll think about it, I said, my voice carefully neutral. Really? Really? Thank you so much, Hazel. I promise you, if you help me get through this, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I'll be the man you deserved from the beginning. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment and smiled. Mason Taylor, in his profound ignorance, believed he was manipulating me. He thought he could exploit my kindness, my love, my forgiving nature to save himself from the crushing consequences of his own despicable actions. He had no idea that the kind, forgiving Hazel Wilson he had once, fleetingly, fallen in love with had died a slow, agonizing death in Romano's restaurant 3 weeks ago. In her place stood someone much more interesting, someone forged in the crucible of betrayal, someone who understood with chilling clarity that mercy was a luxury only the powerful could afford to give, and I, in that moment, was feeling anything but generous. The courtroom revelation. The courthouse loomed, an imposing edifice of gray stone, its high ceilings and institutional lighting casting a pallor that made everyone, innocent or guilty, appear faintly suspect. I sat in the very back row of the courtroom, a figure of quiet observation, clad in a simple navy dress and an expression of carefully cultivated innocence. Mason sat at the defendant's table with his overworked public defender, a man who looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 short weeks. His expensive suits, once a hallmark of his carefully constructed image, were gone, replaced by an ill-fitting, borrowed gray ensemble that screamed desperation. His perfectly styled hair was disheveled, and dark, cavernous circles underlined his eyes, stark evidence of sleepless nights and mounting anxiety. He looked, in other words, like a man who was finally, painfully, facing the brutal reality of his shattered existence. When the judge called for witnesses, I slowly, deliberately stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to speak on behalf of the defendant. Mason's head whipped around, his gaze locking onto mine, and the wave of desperate relief that flooded his face was almost painful to witness. He mouthed, "Thank you," his eyes bright with unshed tears, believing, in his final deluded hope, that I was there to save him. I walked to the witness stand with measured steps, each one a step closer to his reckoning, placed my hand on the worn Bible, and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. State your name and relationship to the defendant, the judge instructed, his voice a steady, impartial drone. My name is Hazel Wilson. Mason Taylor was my boyfriend for 2 years. Was? Yes, Your Honor. We broke up recently. I see, and despite this breakup, you're here to speak on his behalf? I am. Please tell the court about your relationship with Mr. Taylor. I looked directly at Mason, who was watching me with an intensity born of desperate hope. Your Honor, I met Mason 2 years ago, and I thought I knew him well. He could be charming, funny, and attentive when he wanted to be. He took me to nice restaurants, bought me gifts, and told me he loved me. Mason nodded encouragingly, a small, eager gesture. However, I continued, my voice calm but unwavering, I also saw another side of Mason Taylor, a side that I think is relevant to these proceedings. The hope in Mason's eyes flickered, a fragile flame threatened by a sudden draft. What kind of side, Miss Wilson? Mason has a problem with honesty, Your Honor, not just in his professional life, as we've seen with the embezzlement charges, but in his personal relationships as well. Mason's lawyer began to object, a guttural sound of